I got a lot of stuff to get into today, an awful lot of stuff to get into today, but I'd be remiss in starting in any different direction than with Kevin Durant, the superstar basketball player who took the liberty of calling me out in very, very disrespectful terms, to be quite honest with you. But it is what it is. It involves Kevin Durant, as I said, star of the Phoenix Suns. Durant is reportedly tired of my criticism of his leadership in an article written in The Athletic. He says, quote, "I've been in the league for 18 years. I've never seen Stephen A. at a practice or a film session or a shoot around. I've never seen him anywhere but on TV talking shit about players. He's a clown to me. He's always been a clown. You can write that too," end quote. Wow, how testy we get. So that's Kevin Durant speaking about me. And if you're wondering where this all comes from, before I even get into it, let me first show you what I said less than 2 weeks ago during my daytime job, First Take on ESPN, that apparently had Kevin Durant so riled up. Look at what I said, ladies and gentlemen. When you talk about Kevin Durant, this is what we're not going to do. We're not going to look at Kevin Durant and just measure him in terms of just his talent. It's what ability you have to peel out of others. He's been relatively leaderless. He's been very lacking in inspiration in terms of peeling out from those around him whatever you can give him. He'll show up. If you said to me, it's a game 7, it's a game 1, it's a game 5, I don't give a damn what it is. Kevin Durant's going to show up and he's going to ball out. But does he get the others around him to do it? Not only does he not do it, he doesn't feel the level of responsibility I think he should feel in getting it out of him. Needless to say, Kevin Durant wasn't going to take that lying down, because obviously if he claps back at fans and everybody else and their grandmama, he certainly was going to clap back at me. And he most certainly did just a few days later when he threw out this tweet, quote, on X. He says, "First Take, Stephen A. Smith. I would disagree, Stephen. I would argue passionately that my intangibles have always been on par with my talent." I saw that, and I immediately responded by saying, "And I would argue passionately that very little compares to your obvious greatness as a talent, including those intangibles. Respectfully, KD, Trey 5, etc." And then next thing you know, I'm in the house last night watching football, and I see the article with the quote that I had just read to you to start off this segment. A lot of people out there are going to expect me to go in on Kevin Durant, to disrespect him. I just don't feel that way about him. I think Kevin Durant is one of the greatest players to ever play basketball. I think he's one of the greatest offensive talents this world has ever seen. He's a 2-time champion. He's a 2-time NBA Finals MVP. He's a former league MVP. He's a multiple-time scoring champion. He is destined for the Hall of Fame. Having said that, I stand by every damn syllable I uttered about him. I said what I meant, and I meant what I said. His leadership has been brought into question. Now, you've seen articles, because some of these weak-ass reporters try to go out there and use me as the news. And let me tell you why I take offense to that. I take offense to that because it's not as if they're acknowledging me as a personality who was once their brethren, and to some degree still is. They act like they forgot that I was in the press boxes, I was courtside, I was in the media row, I was in pregame locker rooms, postgame locker rooms, shoot-arounds, and all of that stuff, just like they are now. They act like I didn't do that I just ran my mouth and I ultimately got here. New York Daily News, Philadelphia Inquirer, CNNSI, Fox Sports, ESPN. My resume is my resume. It's there for everybody to see. And you might not have known it until you read my book, Straight Shooter. But for a kid that grew up in the streets of Hollis, Queens, New York, that had dyslexia, that got left back because I was in the 4th grade reading on a 1st grade reading level, I think it's pretty it's pretty impressive what I've been able to accomplish in my life, if I should say so myself. Not only am I renowned as a journalist and an insider and a reporter, which I spent the first 20 years of my career doing, but I transitioned to radio and television where I've made noise in this industry as well. And the reason I bring that up is not just because a reporter shouldn't be going up and say, Stephen A. said it, but also a player with Kevin Durant's credentials, no matter how insensitive your ass may be, has no business acting like I didn't do some of the things these reporters do. Kevin Durant lied to you. He's never seen me in a locker room. Ever. You've never seen me at a practice, even though practice is closed to the media, until you finish and they come over. Never. You never saw me at games when, for the better part of the last 25 years, I've been at an average of 120 games a year. You ain't seen me. When you were playing for the Golden State Warriors, you didn't see me sitting courtside. I'm sorry, when you were in Brooklyn and the Golden State Warriors came, you didn't see me sitting courtside with your former owner, Joe Lacob. You didn't see me at a couple of Phoenix games. You didn't see me there. You didn't see me in attendance when you went up against the Clippers. You didn't see me at the finals. You didn't see me at the Western Conference Finals when you were playing against Houston and James Harden. What, we gonna lie now? We gonna lie. Because those are lies. Those are lies. But again, I understand. Because you and your feelings. Call Ralph Tresvant, by the way, told him you was looking for him. Need a man with sensitivity, right? Remember that song? But I digress. I'm just joking around about that. Just a man with sensitivity is just a peg off of that. That's all I was trying to say. Nothing more. Just joking around. But let me get serious again. So we get that out the way. Now let's get to the other parts that you said. I'm a clown. Is that why you called me? Is that why your team called me to be a part of your documentary? New York City Point Guards. That 35 Ventures, if I remember correctly, executive produced. That's why y'all called me? Because I was a clown? It's your docuseries, your company. You run the show. You executive produced it. How come y'all called me? A kid from Coney Island. The story about Stephon Marbury. Didn't you, in concert with Stephon Marbury, didn't you executive produce that too? Along with Marbury and others. How come you called me for that one? Why? When you had the boardroom and you were sitting down to interview people one-on-one, didn't you call me to do that interview? By the way, didn't you show up on First Take? Sitting right across from me? A clown. Remember that? By the way, go back and do your homework. What was one of your largest rated episodes for the boardroom? Where my man Jay Williams was the host. On the occasion that you would sit across from people that you were talking about or talking to. That would be me. But we just going to ignore that, right? Okay, fine. The facts are the facts. It's right there for everybody to see. New York City Point Guards, a kid from Coney Island. I'd encourage all of y'all to watch it. 35 Inches, Stephon Marbury, all of them. They did a great, great job with that stuff. Go watch. I'm featured in it quite heavily, I might add. The clown. That is me. Now let's get back to the biggest issue that I wanted to bring this up. And I alluded to this morning on First Take, but I'll do it again right here over my show, my podcast, etc. Right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Kevin Durant, can anybody talk about you? I just need to know. I just need clarity. You leave Oklahoma City. Y'all are up 3-1. You give up a 3-1 lead.
You end up losing in the Western Conference Finals, letting Golden State come back from a 3-1 deficit when Klay dropped 41 on you in Game 6. When you lost in Game 7. When your middle name could have easily been passive when it counted most. And you lose to Golden State. And before people had a chance to pass gas and go on vacation for the summer, you went to Golden State. To the very team that just sent your ass home. Now, I called it the weakest move in the history of the sport by any superstar. Weakest move by a superstar because you were joining forces to stack the deck. I had to come on the boardroom and explain. In no way was it an attack on you as a player because we all know you great. What I explained was you're so phenomenal as a player that to be paired with the greatest shooting backcourt in the history of basketball and one of the elite defensive players in Draymond Green with a sensational coach in Steve Kerr, the deck was so stacked, it made no sense to watch the upcoming NBA season because there was no competition. And how could a superstar of your caliber want that kind of situation? That was what I said. You go there anyway. Props deserved. 3 straight trip to the NBA Finals. I believe 3 straight championships if you don't get hurt and tear your Achilles. Y'all have beat Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. I think you would have swept them. But it didn't happen. Fair enough. But you won back-to-back titles. You beat LeBron. You were Finals MVP. You were balling out. You were the best player on the Golden State Warriors. All things that I easily acknowledge because I try to tell the truth. And that's just the truth. And then what do? After departing from Oklahoma City to appear on your own show on the boardroom sitting across from me, you said you wanted to play a better brand of basketball. That you just wanted your game to elevate and evolve. And that was your rationale from departing for Russell Westbrook and leaving him hanging to go in and joining forces with the Splash Brothers. Okay, fine. Well, then what was the excuse for leaving to go to Brooklyn with Kyrie Irving? A sensational player, no doubt, and a champion. But obviously had some issues back then. We fast forward. Even though I concede, if Kyrie hadn't got hurt against Milwaukee, y'all have beat Milwaukee. Y'all have won the championship that year. But it didn't happen. But then you, or rather Steph and those boys, go to Boston and they win the championship. And en route to winning the championship, I said, quote, because of all that had happened in Brooklyn and all the things that your star power couldn't reel in and control, that if Steph Curry and Golden State had won the title, you would be viewed more so as the dude who left Steph to join Kyrie rather than two-time champion with 2 NBA Finals MVPs. What has been happening ever since? And why did I bring that up? Because when stuff was transpiring in Brooklyn, everybody thinks it's just about Kyrie and COVID and all of these other issues that he may have had. No. It was about Kenny Atkinson being there and ultimately departing. It was about you signing off on Steve Nash being the head coach when he had no experience on any level to be a head coach. It was about you making sure that Brooklyn embraced Kyrie because Brooklyn didn't want Kyrie. They wanted you, and you made it clear they were not getting you unless Kyrie arrived. You figure out how I know that. You figure that out. And that was after you told the Knicks you were coming. And then at the 11th hour, you got convinced to roll over to Brooklyn, which might be one of the worst business moves, Mr. 35 Ventures, that we have seen from a basketball superstar in the modern day era. Because when we think about business, the number one name that comes to it when we think about basketball and business is LeBron James. Whether it's Cleveland to Miami, back to Cleveland to LA, the business moves were adroit. The business moves were big time. It's undeniable. I think I had somebody tell me just the other day that LeBron James is making over $100 million a year in endorsements alone. That's why he's a billionaire. And you far from broke. And you're highly successful. But think about what you would have been had you become a Knick, who you said were whack. Not taking into account Gotham City, New York, the Mecca, the brand that is the Knicks, and how Nets fans exist in Brooklyn. Knicks fans exist all over New York. And then some. And why were these things relevant? Because people were talking about you, the player, the greatness that comes with you. They were saying, yo, does he really galvanize troops? Does he really, really, really do what it takes to lead? Nobody questioned work ethic. Nobody questioned commitment. Nobody questioned greatness when it came to you and your own individual self. But the other things they brought up were a question mark. Hell, they even brought up weed. Yes, weed. Duh. Now, why would I bring that up? Nobody's diming you out. Nobody's talking about you smoking weed or anything like that. You did. Remember when you did the interview with David Letterman on Netflix? And he brought it up and you said, I might be high right. I'm high right now. And people looking at you and questioning and saying, yo, how committed are you to maximizing all that you can to win a championship? Remember when you did interviews and you talked about how the championship really wasn't that important? Sure, you're going to go out there and you're going to play your hardest and what have you, but really it's not that big of a priority to you. You just want to play the right way and you want to have fun and you want to evolve with the game. Remember, you said all of this. And I didn't even bring up in terms of you getting back to attacking me, what players, what people you've had issues with. Could y'all show the list, please? Just put it right up there for me, please. I'm at the top of the list, sure. Remember when you went at Barkley? Because you got mad because he called you a follower? We don't need to get into Russell Westbrook. We know what that history is about. CJ McCollum, you went on his podcast and then you departed from his podcast and you had issues with something that he said. He's not only a contemporary and a colleague, but he was the president of the Players Association at a particular moment in time. Don't get me started with Kendrick Perkins. He ain't got no reason to talk about you either, huh? He was your teammate. He was in the locker room. All right, Stephen A was in the locker room. He was wearing the same uniform. Went to the finals when you went to the finals. Your teammate. How about Dennis Schroeder? He brings up European basketball players and how they're not about the sizzle, they're about the fundamentals, and you went at him and the international basketball community because of the position he expressed. Not to mention fans in Denver who were rooting for Jokic, who obviously is the best thing they had since sliced bread. Shannon Sharp. You went at him too. Remember Little B? When you decided to depart from Oklahoma City to go to State? I mean, damn. Can anyone say something? I mean, if it's really just about showering you with praise, and that's it. Otherwise, we all in trouble. Say so. Say so. But I just mentioned players, past and present. Rap artists, media pundits, commentators. I didn't even bring up the fans. You got burner accounts, bruh. I mean, I'm proud of you for putting your name to it coming at me like that. At least I know it was you. I am critical of Kevin Durant only from the standpoint that with that money and that greatness comes great responsibility. The kind of responsibility that should have us watching you at least in May. You've been swept 2 of the last 3 years. You got swept by Boston. You got swept by Minnesota. You would have got swept your first year in Denver. I'm sorry, in Phoenix. Maybe not swept, but you probably would have lost if Kawhi Leonard hadn't gotten hurt. He did drop 38 game 1, 31 game 2. Even without Paul George, the Clippers were giving y'all some business. It was tied 1-1. And then all of a sudden, Kawhi Leonard disappeared. Couldn't play no more. There's a legitimate argument that could be made that y'all could have been gone. Your team, led by you, could have been gone in the first round last 3 years. I'm talking basketball, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not getting personal here. I'm talking basketball. And I'm not clapping back at Kevin Durant because he came at me. He has every right to come at me because I was talking about him. He has every right. I take no offense with him clapping back. I'm just saying be factual. Mike Budenholzer just got in Phoenix. You weren't pissed off at Frank Vogel last year with issues involving separate team buses that I ain't going to get into? Come on, bro. You didn't have the greatest relationship with Steve Kerr, but you ended up playing with him for the Olympics or playing for him. I'm making that up. It's just basketball. We're talking basketball. That's the deal. That's all that happened. I got nothing negative to say. Even if I don't get personal like that. And I got mad love for KD, mad respect for him. You don't want to talk? You don't want to talk. I won't miss you. I'm not going to lose any sleep over you, bro. I talk to people who want to talk to me. I show love to people who want to show love to me. If you don't, I won't miss you. But I'm going to do my job, and my job is to talk about basketball. And you want to talk about what I haven't done? Then why don't you get my resume? Google me. But you know you don't need to. Because you did that already. That's why you called me for your documentaries. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't really have to say more than that.